You're not failing to manifest because you don't believe enough. That framing, the one that turns every unrealized desire into evidence of insufficient faith, of inadequate visualization, of spiritual effort not quite reaching the threshold, that framing is wrong. And more than wrong, it is counterproductive, because the very act of trying harder from inside the wrong state makes the wrong state more entrenched. You struggle to manifest because you have been trying to create from a brain state designed for survival. That is not a metaphor. That is a neurological description. And once you understand it as precisely as it deserves to be understood, the entire architecture of how you relate to desire, to intention, to the gap between what you want and what you have, all of it reorganizes. There is a specific internal state where manifestation stops feeling like effort, where you stop chasing outcomes and outcomes begin finding you, where the space between wanting something and having it loses its texture of struggle and becomes something quieter, something more automatic, not because you have finally believed hard enough or visualized correctly or released the right blocks in the right sequence, because you stopped interfering. That is the shift. And the path to it is not through more technique. It is through understanding what is actually happening in the system, in the nervous system, in the brain state, in the quality of the signal your physiology is broadcasting, and learning to change that deliberately from the inside. Most manifestation attempts happen in high beta. Beta brainwave activity is the state of ordinary waking, consciousness, problem solving, analyzing, planning, comparing, checking. It is the state you are in when you are answering emails, navigating traffic, making decisions under pressure, trying to figure out how to get from where you are to where you want to be. Beta is excellent for all of those things. It is the frequency of engagement with the material world, of managing details and responding to demands. But it is terrible for collapsing new probabilities. In beta, the nervous system is in a subtle state of vigilance, scanning the environment for threat, bracing against uncertainty, anticipating what might go wrong so it can be managed before it arrives. When the body is in vigilance, it tightens. When it tightens, it broadcasts contraction, and contraction, as a signal emitted into the quantum field, collapses more of what feels contracted. The field does not read your intentions. It does not evaluate the content of your visualizations or the sincerity of your affirmations. It responds to the stabilized energetic pattern your nervous system is broadcasting. And a nervous system in vigilance is broadcasting, not safe. Not yet. Something might go wrong. This is why repeating affirmations while stressed feels hollow. The words are saying one thing, the body is saying another, and the body's signal is older, deeper, more consistent. It wins. This is why visualizing intensely while simultaneously checking your phone every 5 minutes, monitoring results, analyzing timing, why all of that feels exhausting rather than generative. The effort itself is evidence of the state. Effort in this context is the nervous system's way of compensating for incoherence. You're pushing from a contracted position and wondering why expansion won't come. You cannot force expansion from a contracted state. The field does not respond to intensity. It responds to coherence. And coherence is impossible when the nervous system is in vigilance. There is a different state, two of them adjacent to each other, that together describe what might be called the manifestation frequency, the neurological territory, where the gap between intention and reality narrows, where identity becomes fluid, where the body stops defending the past and becomes genuinely available to something new. Alpha first. Alpha is the bridge, the frequency range between conscious thought and subconscious programming, between the analytical surface of the mind and the deeper layers where identity lives. You enter alpha when you are relaxed but alert, when time slows slightly, when the internal dialogue quiets without disappearing entirely, when awareness becomes spacious rather than directed. The prefrontal cortex relaxes its grip on control. The body feels heavier and calmer. Imagination stops feeling hypothetical and begins feeling experiential. That last distinction is the critical. The subconscious does not respond to logic. It does not process language or argument or intention as abstract concepts. It responds to sensory, emotional experience, to what the body registers as happening. When you imagine your future while in high beta, the body feels separate from it. The brain registers the image as a future event, something out there, not yet here, desired but not yet real. That registration is itself the problem. It reinforces the gap. In alpha, the boundary between imagining and experiencing softens. The body begins to inhabit what is being held in awareness rather than observing it from a distance. This is not the same as being convinced. It is the beginning of something more fundamental, normalization. The nervous system beginning to treat the imagined state as familiar rather than foreign. Theta goes deeper still. Theta is the state just before sleep, the hypnagogic threshold where the analytical mind stops filtering and the body becomes highly suggestible. In theta, imagination feels genuinely real. Emotional memory can be rewritten. Identity can be rehearsed without the resistance that the waking analytical mind would immediately generate. Joe Dispenza describes this as the body asleep and the mind awake. In that state, you are no longer reinforcing the past through stress chemistry. You are free to install a new baseline. This is the neurological condition where manifestation stops being forced. When identity shifts at the subconscious level, when the body has accepted a new configuration as normal, as safe, as familiar, behavior follows automatically. Decisions change without conscious effort. Emotional reactions soften. The nervous system begins selecting differently from a different set of available probabilities because it has encoded a different version of you as its operating identity. And selection is what collapses reality. Now hold the full picture of what this means. The people who appear to manifest effortlessly, the ones whose lives seem to arrange themselves without the grinding effort that most people associate with getting what they want, are not lucky. They are not spiritually advanced in some unattainable sense. They are regulated. Their nervous system is not fighting their desires. Their baseline state is one of quiet certainty rather than anxious monitoring. And quiet certainty broadcasts a coherent signal. A coherent signal collapses probabilities that match it. Think about what happens in the body when you feel desperate for something. There is contraction in the chest. There is acceleration in the mind. There is anticipation laced with fear, the specific chemistry of wanting something so much that the wanting itself creates the sensation of its absence. That mixture sends a mixed signal, and mixed signals create mixed outcomes. Or rather, they create outcomes that match the dominant frequency, which is not desire but anxiety. Now, imagine the opposite state. Desiring something without tension, holding it internally without urgency, without checking whether it's working, without monitoring the timeline. That state is not passive. It is not indifference dressed as acceptance. It is powerful precisely because it is stable. When the body and the brain are no longer broadcasting contradiction, when what you want and what your nervous system is encoding as normal are the same thing, the field has a clean signal to work with. Manifestation becomes automatic, not because you did more, but because you interfered less. There is a threshold in consciousness where you stop trying to manifest and start being the version of you for whom the outcome is natural. When that threshold is crossed, the entire quality of the process changes. You don't chase confirmation. You don't rehearse doubt. You don't monitor timelines or look for signs or analyze whether what is happening constitutes progress. You simply stabilize, and stabilization is what selects reality. The question that reorganizes everything is not, how do I manifest? The question is, what brain state am I broadcasting from? Because the shift is not in the future. It is in the frequency of your nervous system right now. Here's how to enter it deliberately, not as a ritual, but as a precise neurological transition. Start with the breath. Not because breath is spiritual, but because breath is the fastest and most reliable lever you have over your own autonomic nervous system. Slow your inhale to a steady count. Extend the exhale slightly longer than the inhale. A longer exhale activates parasympathetic regulation. It signals the nervous system that the environment is safe, that vigilance can relax, that the body can afford to soften. Within a few cycles, something shifts. Not dramatically, subtly, the chest loosens slightly. The mind's urgency decreases. The quality of attention changes from outward scanning to inward awareness. This is the entry point. You are not trying to eliminate thought. You are allowing frequency to lower. Let thoughts slow without fighting them. Notice the weight of your body. Notice the space behind your forehead. When you feel that subtle internal quiet, when urgency fades and awareness becomes spacious, you are approaching alpha. From here, bring attention to the heart center, not as a spiritual gesture, but as a neurological strategy. When attention shifts from the analytical mind to the area of the heart, brainwave activity begins to slow. The heart rhythm starts synchronizing with cortical activity. This is heart-brain coherence, measurable, reproducible, and the signal of a system that is no longer in internal conflict. Now introduce your desired identity, not as a distant goal, as a present state. Ask the body, not the mind, a very specific question. If I were already living the reality I want, how would I feel right now? Not what would I have, not what would I have achieved. How would I feel in the body? Would there be urgency or steadiness? Would there be tension or grounded certainty? Let that sensation expand in the chest gently. If it is faint, that is fine. You are not generating emotion. You are training familiarity. The goal is not to feel excitement about the future. It is for the nervous system to begin treating the desired state as safe, as normal, as something the body can inhabit without bracing against it. Because if the nervous system feels safe in expansion, it stops unconsciously bracing against it. And if it stops bracing, you stop accidentally sabotaging what is forming. Stay in that state long enough for the body to stop resisting it. This is where most people interrupt the process. They begin checking, wondering whether it's working, scanning for evidence, pulling their attention back out into beta to verify that the practice is doing something. That checking is itself the interruption. Every return to anxious monitoring pulls the brain back into high beta. Every return to beta reinforces the old identity. The old neural pathways become dominant again. The previous configuration reasserts itself, not because the field rejected you, because the observer became unstable. In quantum mechanics, a system remains in superposition until observation collapses it. But the quality of the observation matters. An unstable observer produces inconsistent collapse. A coherent observer produces stable collapse. When your identity becomes coherent, when your thoughts, emotions, and physiology align into the same signal, the field reflects that alignment, not as reward, as physics. This is what automatic manifestation actually is. Not magic, not the universe suddenly deciding to favor you. The absence of internal contradiction. The moment the body, the brain, and the imagination are broadcasting the same signal consistently, the moment you stop sending mixed transmissions into the field, reality reorganizes without force. You don't push outcomes. You allow compatibility. There is a specific turning point where this shifts from practice into baseline. At first, you access the state intentionally. You breathe, you regulate, you move into alpha, you rehearse identity. It feels like technique, like something you do at certain times and then return from. But over time, with enough repetition of state, rather than repetition of technique, something changes. The identity you have been rehearsing begins to feel less imaginary and more natural. The body begins recognizing it as safe, and once the body recognizes it as safe, it becomes stable. Once stable, it becomes familiar. Once familiar, it becomes the baseline. And once it becomes the baseline, manifestation becomes automatic, not because you are doing the practice, but because the practice has installed a different version of you. A version for whom the desired outcomes are not aspirations, but natural extensions of who they already are. You begin to notice the shift not in dramatic external events, but in the quality of your reactions. Situations that once pulled you into contraction now feel neutral. A delay that would previously have generated urgency simply doesn't. Expense that would previously have triggered the contraction of scarcity doesn't reach the old depth. An opportunity that doesn't align simply loses its magnetism. You are no longer energetically available for the old timeline, not through discipline or spiritual practice, but because the identity that sustained it has genuinely loosened its grip. Automatic manifestation is not magic. It is the absence of automatic sabotage. Most manifestation failure is what might be called accidental collapse, the repeated pattern, where you visualize success and then emotionally rehearse the fear of losing it, where you affirm abundance and then react to a small expense with the full chemistry of scarcity, where you imagine the relationship and then brace at the first vulnerability. Each contraction reaffirms the old identity. The body says, yes, this is actually what we believe. This is actually who we are. And the field, which takes its instructions from the body's signal rather than the mind's intentions, continues collapsing that version of you into experience. But when identity shifts, truly shifts, not just intellectually but somatically, at the level of nervous system encoding, those contractions stop feeling natural. Reacting the old way begins to feel foreign. You catch yourself earlier. You return to coherence faster. Not because you're trying harder, but because the old pattern no longer has the same hold. It has lost coherence. And when it loses coherence, it loses its ability to sustain itself. This is the level where people say everything just started flowing. The explanation they usually offer is that they finally let go, or surrendered, or trusted. All of those words are pointing at something real but imprecise. What actually happened is their identity locked in. The new configuration achieved enough internal coherence that the field stopped resisting it. And when the field stops resisting, when there is no longer a contradictory signal competing with what you want, reality reorganizes around the cleaner transmission. The more stable your internal state, the less reality resists, because resistance was never external. It was physiological. It was the nervous system broadcasting survival chemistry, cortisol, vigilance, the civic internal tension of not yet safe, and the field reflecting it back with precision. When physiology aligns with desire, when the body is living in creation chemistry rather than survival chemistry, manifestation becomes a consequence of who you are, not something you chase, not something you earn. Not something you finally get right after getting it wrong enough times. A consequence, the natural output of a coherent system, the inevitable result of a signal that has finally stopped contradicting itself. There is one final layer, the one that determines whether this state becomes permanent or remains something you visit and lose. It is the most subtle and the most critical. The mind, once it begins to see results, once the early signs of reorganization appear, once opportunities begin arriving with less friction, once the quality of life begins shifting in small confirmatory ways, the mind wants to take over. It wants to analyze why it's working. It wants to speed things up, secure the outcomes, manage the process to ensure it continues. It wants to insert control back into something that was finally working, precisely because control was absent. Security rooted in fear reactivates old coherence. The mastery of this final phase is the most precise thing in the entire process. Receiving without tightening, allowing progress without clutching, letting the new reality unfold without inserting the old management reflex back into the space that had just cleared. Because the moment you over-control, you introduce noise. Noise weakens coherence. Coherence is what is doing the work. The old identity required tension to survive. It was organized around managing, fixing, securing. The new one thrives in stability. The old timeline was built on reaction. The new one is built on response. And response, the regulated, considered, Coherent movement from a stable center is what sustains the automatic state. Once response replaces reaction consistently, the collapse is no longer fragile. It is inevitable. You don't need to force the future. You need to match it. And matching requires nothing more than becoming and remaining coherent. Becoming the frequency at which the things you want are no longer distant possibilities, but the natural extension of what you already are. This is the level most people understand intellectually and rarely embody. Not because embodiment is impossible, but because they stop at understanding. They absorb the framework and return to high beta to think about it. They feel the shift during a practice and then immediately check whether the shift is holding, which ends the shift. They enter coherence and then destabilize it with doubt. Enter it again and destabilize it with urgency. Enter it again and destabilize it with analysis. Each interruption is a return to the old wiring. Each return to the old wiring is a vote for the old identity, and the old identity is very good at making itself necessary. It knows how to manufacture urgency, how to create the impression that things are moving too slowly, that something must be done, that waiting in coherence is passive when what the moment demands is action. It isn't action the moment demands, it is stability. Steadiness is magnetic. Quiet certainty collapses probability faster than emotional spikes ever will. The people who appear to attract things without effort are not trying to collapse reality. They are simply not interfering with it. They have become the condition where manifestation happens automatically, not as a technique they are applying, but as a state they are living from. That state is available to you. Not in a future where you have done enough work or cleared enough blocks or developed sufficient spiritual capacity. Now, in the frequency of your nervous system in this moment, the shift you are looking for is not ahead of you. It is in the quality of the signal you are broadcasting right now. And once you learn to enter that state deliberately, once alpha-theta coherence becomes accessible on demand, once the desired identity begins to feel familiar rather than aspirational, once the body stops bracing against expansion, manifestation stops being a practice, it becomes a consequence. And you stop asking whether it's working, because you know calmly, steadily, without urgency, and reality moves.